How would I describe myself?
You've been described as a pseudo-archaeologist, someone who cherry-picks your data. Your books are read by millions, but dismissed by academics.
Did you know that you were picking a fight with academia? Because there's a lot of people that just don't want to hear this.
You have been at the front of the line for decades, and you exposed me to a lot of these controversial ideas that have now been substantiated.
Well, I'm Graham Hancock.
Well, hello there. I am Bones of Amber, and as you know, I normally do live streams. But today I'm gonna be doing something a little bit different. I have seen a lot of talk on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and on YouTube of this new Netflix show called Ancient Apocalypse. Seeing as this show seems to be stirring up some controversy, so much so that the Society for American Archaeology has made a statement on this show, I just had to watch it, and when I did, I knew I should make some sort of video in response to it. This video will only cover the first episode, titled Once There Was a Flood. Now, instead of requesting for Netflix to reclassify the show from a docuseries to something else, or placing a warning in the beginning of each episode, or stating that the base theory Hancock holds is racist and rooted in white supremacy, archaeologists should be working to communicate with the public and disseminating the knowledge and data we do have that Hancock may be misrepresenting or missing in his own research. The relationship between academics and the general populace has been a distant one, and we need to do better.
You've got to do better, Senator.
One thing I can say, when people learn I am an archaeologist, they get excited. Most say they've never met one before. The intrigue people have for our field of research is strong, and we should be taking advantage of this. This is exactly what I hope to do with this channel. Now strap in while I try to cross the bridge and open a dialogue. Like most history or science-based TV shows, the introduction is quite dramatic. I can't blame them. They have to draw the audience. The opening paints Graham Hancock as the little guy taking on the big bad establishment. And who doesn't like a David and Goliath sort of tale? The first thing to note about Graham Hancock is he is not an archaeologist, biologist, historian, or scientist in any way. He is a journalist, and he states this very clearly within the first 10 minutes. There is nothing wrong with that. Everyone has a vested interest in humankind's past, and a degree should not gatekeep access to it. Hancock believes himself to be the #1 enemy to archaeologists.
No, you ain't!
Morty!
This makes it seem as though archaeologists are a cohesive entity that all view the field in the past the exact same way. We aren't. I will give him this: a sense of dramatization or competition and a sense of war between two different groups is an excellent way to sell your product or ideas to the general population. One thing I personally didn't like is the us versus them mentality he paints, stating things like so-called experts or mainstream version of history. This belittles and devalues the years of work that archaeologists, historians, and other scientists have completed. Archaeologists aren't a closed-off elite group that meet in a secret back room of a museum to decide what history and the story of man's past is. We aren't some maniacal, monocle-wearing, pipe-smoking, mustache-twirling, evil genius. Archaeologists enjoy thinking and wondering about the past and what could have been possible for people thousands of years ago. We spend months in the field, rain or shine, digging meticulously, breaking our backs, moving tons of soil manually. We dedicate our lives to this field, and we love it.
Hi-ho, it's home from work we go.
It is the job of archaeologists to gather and analyze data in order to piece together the puzzle of our past. Without this evidence, any ideas of the past are just that, ideas. At its core, archaeology is a science and must adhere to the scientific process. That includes peer review. Anyways, I digress. Let's move on to the meat of this episode. He visits and discusses a specific site he believes represents the remnants of a civilization who were influenced or even benefactors of this Ice Age civilization. The site is called Gunung Padang.
The possibility of civilization emerging earlier than we think. Of course, this idea is upsetting to the so-called experts, who insist that the only humans who existed during the Ice Age were simple hunter-gatherers.
A caveman could do it.
What?
Not cool. I did not know you were there.
Hunter-gatherers are not simple, and no archaeologist thinks this.
The mainstream version of history says that after the end of the Ice Age, on their own initiative, our hunter-gatherer ancestors suddenly began farming and raising livestock.
This wasn't a sudden thing, it was a gradual shift into farming and raising livestock over generations.
Family tradition.
But new discoveries keep on pushing that horizon back.
This is true that new discoveries keep pushing the horizon. As scientists, we gather more data and adjust our worldviews accordingly. Archaeologists' knowledge of human history has changed many times and will continue to change a little bit here and there with new discoveries every year.
We don't know about the absolute dating in this site. This site was abandoned for so long and perhaps forgotten.
When Dr. Akbar's team first surveyed the site, they quickly found evidence that humans had been present in what's called a cultural lair.
However, we still not found a skeleton or human bone. So this is not burial site. Perhaps it is for ceremonial or ritual.
What is this evidence he uncovered? Tried to find any research paper that went through this data and could not. Hancock does not state any specifics of what Akbar claims to have found.
Natural, but the position now is not in a natural position.
And normally vertical.
Vertical, yeah.
And here it's laid on its side.
And also it's not cut like this.
Yeah.
Here, always cut into like 1 and 1.5 meters.
Right.
There's something else unusual that Dr. Hillman noticed. Between the blocks.
The natural position, there is no ground mass in between. It will be very tight together.
This is actually interesting. As far as I am aware, this type of geological formation is found vertically and tightly packed. There isn't an inclusion of consistent mortar-like substance between the slabs. This was altered at some point by humans, and to find out when it may have been altered, the substances directly beneath it would have to be dated. However, if any top layers were removed during construction of this retaining wall, the dating may not be very precise.
The north side features a stairway, climbing more than 300 feet until it reaches the first of 5 terraces. Over an area about 490 feet long by 130 feet wide. This is the ancient site of Gunung Padang.
It has a seismic velocity about 200 meters per second.
Right.
Which in Ayman's terms means what exactly?
That's a void.
A void, an empty space. And you can get a sense of the shape of that empty space?
Yes, as you see here, it's a rectangular.
It's a rectangle. Yeah.
And the spot is just
You mean like 4 corners?
right.
Yeah.
Because in the center of this site,
Right.
beneath the terrace 1, there's also a chamber
Yes.
connecting to this chamber beneath the second terrace.
What Dr. Hillman and his team have discovered are at least 3 large rectangular chambers, one around 10 meters down, perhaps an entrance hall of some kind. It seems to have an access tunnel leading to a larger main chamber, and another passage connecting to a third chamber between 20 to 30 meters deep, all 3 located right along the central axis of the site.
I have tried to obtain the geological report for this and had no luck. Even though it was funded very well, it turns out he never published it. This is also worrying, as one of the most important steps in the scientific method is peer review. You have to show the evidence to back up your claims.
It certainly is a big bun.
It's a very big bun.
Big fluffy bun.
It's a very big fluffy bun.
Where's the beef?
To put a date on this hill that's not a hill, Dr. Hillman and his team turned to another geological tool: core drilling. As expected, samples of the top 2 layers dated from 3,000 years ago back to around 8,000 years ago. Those sections had been laid out around 11,600 years ago, pushing the origins of this site back to the end of the last ice age.
Your datings of this structure put it right back to the Ice Age. So for me, this raises a sense of enormous excitement. I can't help wondering whether those chambers contain some evidence or information that might have a bearing on my search for a lost civilization.
Yeah, I think we know little about our history.
Right.
I think we miss a big thing here.
So the first 2 layers span a total of 5,000 years. Then, after 3,600 years pass, another layer is dated at 15 meters in depth. Just to give you an idea, 5,000 years is anywhere between 143 to 250 generations. That's a whole lot of grandmas. My question is, what is being dated? How is it being dated? Is this associated with the cultural layers discussed before? There are many different ways to obtain the age of something. There are 2 categories of dating that a scientist can utilize. Relative dating includes stratigraphy, seriation, faunal dating, and pollen dating, also called palynology. Then there's absolute dating methods. This includes amino acid racemization, cation ratio dating, thermoluminescence, tree ring dating, radioactive decay dating, potassium-argon dating, radiocarbon dating, uranium series dating, and fission track dating. Without knowing what is being dated or how it is being dated, I can't even say whether this is a cultural site.
Things had gradually been getting warmer for quite a long period of time. And then suddenly, things happen at once. First, global temperatures plunge to the level that they were at the peak of the Ice Age, and they do so almost literally overnight. And secondly, there's a sudden and inexplicable rise in sea level. Now, normally, in an Ice Age, when you enter an episode of freezing, you do not expect to see a large amount of water dumped in the world ocean, because that water has been turned into ice.
Hancock is talking about the Younger Dryas, which took place between 12,900 and 11,700 years ago. A total of 1,200 years passed during this time. To keep in terms of generations, that is between 30 and 60 generations of grandmas. A great-grandma to the 27th great. The Younger Dryas was a return to glacial conditions during the last glacial maximum, putting a pause to the climate warming. This was the most severe disruption to the warming of Earth's climate. It took only a couple decades to set in and resulted in glacial conditions in much of the northern hemisphere. The most accepted explanation of this phenomenon is the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. This is the current that takes warm water from the equator to the North Pole. This has been shown to have not affected the whole world. The southern hemisphere was mostly untouched, which makes sense with this theory. If the sudden rush of cold water from the melting glaciers of the north disrupted the Atlantic current, the northern hemisphere is what would be most affected. Looking at the post-glacial sea levels, there are multiple instances before and after the Younger Dryas with far more dramatic sea level changes. These are called meltwater pulses. All jokes made in this video aside, I think Graham Hancock is doing a great job at piquing the interest of the general populace. The first episode of his Netflix series was quite fun and exciting to watch. It just had some missing details to explain some of these questions. Well, that is all I have for you guys on the first episode of Ancient Apocalypse. I want to thank you for making it through this video. As it is my first one, I hope you enjoyed yourself, had a laugh, and learned something new. Have a wonderful evening and take care.